what we're going to find as interpreters that work in the church is that we're often going to be asked to participate as the interpreter for weddings and funerals. My practice is it's best to always approach those as a job. Really try to make those a job as opposed to an act of love. And the reason for that is because these environments, these settings, weddings and funerals, are filled with emotions. Good, bad, and ugly emotions can manifest themselves, whether it be a wedding or a funeral, right? Everybody knows exactly what we're talking about. And so it's best for us to come in and interpret and help, but to not go in as the deaf person's friend, companion, because next thing you know, you are sucked into some drama. And then you walk away going, how did I let that happen? And I don't know if you all are aware of this. There are some people out there, some families that are what this word called dysfunctional. Yeah, I'm sure none of us have that experience in our family lives, but there are people out there who live in messy worlds, and we get drawn into the wedding, which is a happy time most of the time for some of the people, most of the people, some of the time, and funerals as well. And you can run the whole gamut. It's the funeral for someone who's been ill for a very long time, and people are in a good place about it, or if it was sudden, it was a shock, it was tragic, the person's too young, you have everything going on. So we have to kind of gear up and buck up when we accept that request to interpret a wedding or funeral. And I'm going to say, think long and hard. Think really long and hard about accepting that request if you ever get it. Yes?
Are you going to go into culturally different funerals?
If we have time, we can definitely address that. Of course, my emphasis was more, my study was more of different faiths and what they bring to funerals. I don't know how far we're going to get into the material, and so yes, bring that up because that's huge too. And of course, you got the whole deaf hearing dynamics. You may have one deaf person in the hearing family, and it was their favorite brother, or it was the person that bullied them the most, or whatever. And now finally they've got an interpreter, and they can tell these people what they really think about them.
Oh, no.
You don't know. You look like you're thinking of something, Marilyn.
I don't know always that I'm doing it. It's because Billy will be asked to perform the wedding or the ceremony or the funeral. And they assume I'm going to do it.
Love that. When they just assume that you're going to be the interpreter.
And I get stuck up there.
Yes.
At the last minute.
And I even had a situation one time where a family in our church lost a baby. I didn't know the family. Yes, it was sad that they'd lost a baby, but I didn't know them and blah, blah, blah. But one of our deaf couples had some interaction and wanted to go to the funeral. I said, sure, I'll interpret it. Halfway through it, I'm sitting there going like, what was I thinking? I mean, tears are rolling down my face. I'm picking up the edge of my dress and going like, like, oh my word, what was I thinking? So I haven't done another one since of any kind. It's like, if there's a funeral in our church, it's going to get somebody brought in.
And the scary thing, the horrible thing is sometimes we have to put ourselves in a situation to realize, oh, that's not for me, before we can know our limitations. Sometimes the only way we know what our limitations are is to push them and go, oh, wow.
Like, what was I thinking?
What was I thinking? Yes. We're going to just kind of blend weddings and funerals. I'm not going to 20 minutes on weddings, 20 minutes on funerals. It's all, we're going to blend it. But if you're interpreting a wedding, you have different levels, okay? It might be the deaf couple. The couple is both deaf, and they want you to interpret the ceremony. So typically, you've been asked in advance, you have some good prep time, you may even have been involved in the premarital counseling, interpreting that they may have wanted to participate in. And so you've been there, you've got time to prepare, they're going to share their songs with you, and maybe even send you text so you know what's going to be read, and you can really have some good preparation time. Sometimes you've been asked to interpret a wedding, and it's because a deaf cousin's coming in from out of state, and they want to include him in the family, and so they're just calling you. You come in the day before, they contact you the day before and say, oh yeah, Billy Bob's coming to the wedding, and we need somebody to interpret for him. And so you have no preparation virtually, and you may or may not get the list. Or I see several people coming and scanning. It's as if somebody is being searched for, but multiple people have come and scanned and they haven't found, so they're not in here. Whoever that.
Put a sign on the door. This is not the room you're
Quit looking in here. Yes, yes. Well, that's okay. You come on in. I'm fine with that. But your level of involvement can change too. If it's the deaf couple, you're liable, probably going to be much more visible, much more prominent. And if it's Billy Bob, you might be in a chair over here to the side. Or even, in a chair in the middle of the side aisle. You're not at the front, you're just wherever he is. So that can vary and change. Now, funerals, different story. Typically, you don't have a lot of prep time. Great. You don't have a lot of prep time. Person's passed away, there's a couple of days, they've looked and looked and looked, or they called you, whatever, and so now you're just trying to get some information, and that primarily what you're going to end up doing is showing up on site, and then that's when you're going to get your songs, you're going to get the information that you need to have. So that's your preparation time. Both ceremonies, and I'm going to use ceremonies, just services, what have you, will utilize what we call frozen text, meaning they're going to read something that's already been prepared that we know. I don't mean like a speech, but I mean there's going to be scripture, or there's going to be a poem, or there's going to be something that the words, is a poem frozen text? I don't know. Give me an example.
Some frozen text.
A frozen text.
Other than scripture?
Other than scripture.
Pledge of Allegiance.
Well, yeah, I was thinking Star Spangled Banner, but you don't really hear that. Now, I can tell you, I've got stories. Y'all. That makes me.
I've got a good one.
Okay, yes, I'll hold my story.
A deaf friend wants taps to be, the words of taps to be spoken at his funeral.
Mm-hmm. Has he died yet?
No.
Start practicing.
Mm-hmm. The Miranda warning.
The Miranda warning is frozen, yes. That typically doesn't show up in wedding or funeral either, but
Dearly beloved, we are gathered here in the sight of.
That's what I was
God
thinking
and
of.
presence
You know,
of
the
these
canned
witnesses.
stuff that always shows up in a funeral. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. Okay. That's frozen text. Yes, those phrases. So those are things we can prepare in advance and kind of spend some time working through those and determining. And all of a sudden going, well, I didn't know they were going to say dearly beloved. Who says dearly beloved for anything anymore? Well, at weddings, you do. Somebody is lost.
I need to put this over the door.
I had two experiences. I did a wedding for deaf parents of a hearing son and then his fiancée, which was easy because they gave me all the music. They gave me a complete script of what was going to be said. So there I had everything. Boom, I was done. The other experience was a funeral. It was an old gentleman, and his wife says, "You're doing the service." I said, "No, I don't want to do it." And she says, "You're doing the service." So I did. But luckily, it was our preacher, and he gave me a complete script. So I had everything word for word, and they had no music. She didn't want no music. All she wanted was this said, this said, this said. That's it. Close the casket. We're done.
And that, again, when we were talking about the Code of Professional Conduct and what we're able to do, weddings and funerals in particular, tug at our heartstrings, because this is a time when people are grieving and we want to help and we want to do, but maybe we're grieving as well. Like you were saying, maybe we can't interpret that funeral. I've interpreted many funerals where it was just so hard on me, and you do the whole I'm trying to give this to you, because when one person starts crying, then everybody starts crying.
It's an audience that you've got eye contact with, and they're crying.
Yes, and you're right. They're crying, and so then that makes you cry. Very, very tough situation.
That person who keeps dead still, it's like they look like I'm looking at them. I'm actually looking above their heads. That helps keep my emotions in control.
Right. Get a target, get a fixed area, and don't worry about eye contact at this point, because they're going to be in and out anyway. They may watch you for a little bit, and then they're off. They're thinking, they're looking, they're whatever. So I like that fixed point. Questions to ask are going to be, who am I interpreting for? Who's the audience? Are there one person, a couple, or a bunch of people in the audience? All right. What? Give me the music. Give me the text. Whatever you can. And that's much harder to do with funerals. It just is. If you can, I'll tell you, the funeral director, I was thinking mortician is not the right word, but the funeral directors are very helpful. They will just walk you through, and they will tell you where everything's going to go and who needs to be where and all of this. So they're good people to work with. But a lot of times they don't, if we're the first ones that come through as interpreters, they don't know. So we have to work with them on that.
One thing, Francis, often funerals are hymns, and probably we could be familiar with those words. Weddings can be all over the place, but on weddings, you may be planning to mention this, often you have the rehearsal the night before, and so that's a chance to just really gather some information.
And that's one of the questions to ask. What are your expectations? Are you expecting me at the rehearsal dinner? Are you expecting me to stay until the bitter end, or, I went, or like a funeral, do you expect me to go to the graveside? Oh, that's a very good question to ask, because you don't want to be thinking you're heading out of the funeral home and they're going, ho, 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 come on, you got to ride with us 40 minutes out into the country and do the graveside. But, and I lost. No. It was questions to ask, expectations. I agreed to do a wedding, with quite a bit of advance notice, and so everything was good. And then I ended up having surgery 2 weeks before. But in my mind, I was going to be back at it in 3 days. I don't think the doctor actually said that to me, but I thought I'd be back in 3 days. Come 2 weeks later, and it's wedding time, and I'm still very low. I'm still very sedate. I'm wearing turtleneck because it was surgery right here. So I'm doing this and do the service, and they asked me to stay for the cake cutting and all this. And so I go, okay, cake cutting, that's usually right at the top of the reception. We're going to do this. I'll stay for the cake cutting. They said this after I got there, because can I leave after the ceremony? I'll stay for the cake cutting. Okay. And they did the reception. Everybody's eating, full meal, dancing. They're doing this, and that beautiful cake is sitting in the corner, uncut.
For hours.
For hours.
Time to cut the cake.
I know, and I'm just sitting going. And finally, I don't remember. I think I left. I know I left. I don't remember if they cut the cake for me or if I left before cutting of the cake. I don't remember. But that was something that I thought I had clarified. I thought I knew how long I was staying, and I didn't. So questions to ask. Ask where and when, how long. Do I interpret for the picture taking of the wedding? Do I have to be there at 1 o'clock for a 6 o'clock wedding to interpret all that prep stuff, or do I show up at 5:47-ish? Rehearsal dinner. Is there going to be voicing? Is there going to be any voicing? One time I showed up to a funeral for a deaf man, and hearing children had decided that they were going to allow people to come up to the front and give their little spiels and stories. So all of a sudden that turned into, I'm signing, I'm coming down here and I'm voicing, and I'm coming up and I'm signing and I'm voicing. And if we'd known, could have brought somebody else in, or we could have figured out a way to make that work, time it, schedule things where I wasn't doing this. Just because I don't want people going, and wow, look at that interpreter. It's not what it's about for me. I want it to go smooth and everybody to be able to grieve and have their ceremony and not be going, wow, look at that interpreter. They got her running, So, ways to prep. This is true for both ceremonies. Learn the family tree. Learn who's kin to who. And, when you go to a funeral, they're going to list survived by all these people. Predeceased, that's not the term. What's the term that they use when mom and daddy's already died? But they're preceded, thank you, preceded by. And they're going to name these people. Nicknames. You look around going, who's Bo? Bo, is it Bo? Bo? Who's Bo? And so when you're interpreting, you kind of want to go, and oh boy, Susie loved Bo. You want to be able to go, Susie loved Bo. You. And I use Bo because my husband was 28 when he found out that his family called him Bo. Because we went into something and everybody's yelling, Bo, Bo, Bo's here, and all this. And so I asked him, who's Bo? I said, "Oh no, who's Bo?" So we started asking, "You're Bo," and
Nobody had told him.
that has nothing to do with weddings or funerals.
Well, it might.
But that's the kind of thing. Find out nicknames, who people are.
Sign names.
Sign names would be awesome, because I just did a funeral here recently where there were 3 deaf siblings, and I knew name signs for 2 of them, and then there's the hearing sibling. I didn't know name signs for the 3rd deaf or the hearing sibling. So it was, it was like I was saying first name, I was saying and Francis and Randy and Bobby and Mary. And they were kind of on a different level, just because I didn't know that already. So, a little thing. But instrumentals. Find out if they're just gonna hit some instrumentals. Taps with words. That's interesting. I thought you were just gonna say taps.
Just the words. Probably not music.
Okay.
He's deaf, so.
Well,
I think he just gave me the words.
I interpreted a
That's
funeral
been,
with where a deaf wife was persuaded by hearing family members that they needed to play the Alabama football team fight song during the funeral. She didn't want any part of it, but family, hearing family, yes, he loved the Alabama sports team, football team. They click play, the interpreter's there, and when we hear that information, family, the wife, interpreters, we're all thinking snippet. Da 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 da, whatever, la 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 la. I'm not even sure that's right, but you Alabama people don't correct me because I don't know. Short, play here, ha ha. Click on. 3 minutes.
Oh, no.
Over and over, they play that little routine, and the interpreter's standing there, like it's music, no words. I know. I mean, is it appropriate to do the living Is that appropriate? And even to the point where the deaf family is saying, "Is it over?" And of course, I'm off to the side going, "Yes, it wasn't me this time." Find that stuff out. And things that even we hear, we know, we assume we know, and they throw us a curveball. Typical songs that you're going to hear at funerals are Amazing Grace. Here, there's been a lot of Beulah Lands lately. Beulah Land. What else?
I had did a wedding and it was country western music. I go, what?
Country western music.
Yeah, and so I'm up there.
Yes. And the whole, that there's a popular song about daddies and daughters. That's going to be in the wedding, and yes. The Lord's Prayer. Be prepared for that. Somehow that one catches me by surprise every time. Oh, Lord's Prayer. Yes.
We talked about this earlier, but whenever I did the last funeral that I did, it was Sweet Home Alabama, and He Stopped Loving Her Today by Conway. Yeah. And I had no prior knowledge of what was going on. I literally walked in. I didn't even get a chair to sit in because I was just one of the pews with the desktop.
Yeah. That will happen.
Yes.
Stop loving her today. Wow. So, he died or did she die?
He died.
So he stopped loving her.
Oh. Yeah, that's really what that song is about.
out.
It's not.
No, I mean, really, he loved her until he didn't. He never stopped loving her.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, and Freebird, I forgot Freebird.
Freebird!
Freebird, yes.
Oh no, Freebird.
So,
Did you get out your lighter? What are you gonna do, y'all? People
Do weird things.
do the weirdest things, yes.
Yeah, I get
We're
lucky.
getting ideas for our funerals now.
I had 15 songs, but they was, all a cappella and
Well, and then you get, 2 instrumentals. What do you do? I have been unnerved as a woman interpreter to be standing next to a song leader, and it's a very mixed group, and he's leading, or no, he's doing it. What's he doing? I think he was leading. So now I'm interpreting the Psalms, and when people walk in, it looks like I'm leading the Psalms. And I just got struck by that at one point. It's different than doing it in your regular setting. Because yeah. I'm pointing to this. Glenn Colley, the man who was on the video that we watched this morning, preacher here in Huntsville. I was doing that for a funeral, and he walked in late, and we both just made eye contact, and I just wanted to crawl into the floor because I thought, what does it look like, Anyway, that's an aside kind of thing. All right. So there's no clock in this room, so I don't know how we're doing.
2:30.
These classes are too short. At this point, I want to go back to the Code of Professional Conduct and ask you to really give thought to whether or not you want to accept this funeral or this wedding. It's okay to say no. Many times, and these funerals are the worst, where there's nobody else. There's nobody else. We need you to do this. If you can, you can. If you can't, you can't. And don't. We'll have time, I hope, at the end to talk. Okay. If you're going to the cemetery, you've got to decide if you're going to follow and be a part of the procession, or if you're just going to drive to the cemetery. Figure out where to park so you don't get stuck. The last one I did, we drove out to this little cemetery, and I had never been there before. So we pull in, and then we pulled down this little street, and down this street. It's a little one-lane paved road with headstones on both sides. And before I realized where we were, saw that every car had parked 2, 2, 2, 2. There wasn't any getting out of there. So I parked way back. I gave myself some space in between this car. I was really at the end, so there was only one car behind me. And he parked well behind me, and I thought, I can do the little scoochie, and I can back out of here and get out. Go to the graveside, and then, of course, people want to stay until the casket has been fully lowered and covered. So, do my things, make my goodbyes, say my goodbyes, and then I go back to my car, and some latecomer has parked right beside me. And kind of back a little bit, where there's no... I'm not going back up there. So I rolled my windows down, and I sat in my car and waited. And I was hot because I didn't, graveside, that can be hot. It can also be rainy.
Yeah.
It can be cold.
Take a coat.
That's right. Be prepared. Think about that. We get caught. We don't think about these things.
I left my coat in the car thinking I would follow. No. The funeral director took me directly to his car, and I was set in. I'm like, I need to get... No, we don't have time. So I'm
I was froze.
And that's one thing, we do allow people to push us around. You know, we try to be accommodating, but they say, come here, let's go, do this, we go, oh, okay, and then we're sitting here going, oh, this is a bad decision. Now what do I do? I mean, I have 1 foot here and 1 foot here, and I'm really trying to, whatever.
On the be prepared, I just thought of this, and it's really funny. I've never done it. I've never needed it. But both places have flowers, whatever. If you got allergies, you might want to take a Benadryl.
That's a great thought.
Well, whatever doesn't put you to sleep. If you have some kind of allergy medicine that doesn't make you sleep.
That's a great point, yes. And when it comes to weddings, don't manage to insert yourself into every picture. You know, like front and center so everybody can see me, and you're in every picture that the photographer is taking of the wedding. And figure out how to not be in every picture, and I've seen it happen. I've seen where they've had to crop and Photoshop the interpreter out because the interpreter managed to get in so many pictures. So we don't want to do that. I typically do not socialize. Like I say, I approach it as a job. And so I go in, I find out where I need to be, I do all my planning, and then I interpret for the family or where I'm supposed to be. I'm the interpreter. I don't go off and sit around and stand in the circle with all the deaf people and just talk or go hug my friends and all that. If I'm working a funeral or wedding, then I'm working it. And I don't know how that all developed, but I'm pretty rigid on that. And so I will, speak to people and I'll say things, but then I'm right back on it. And I just think that in those settings, maybe it's a way of just kind of preparing myself to just be working that service, and not getting too emotionally invested and talking to people beforehand about the deceased or whatever, and then already starting that emotional welling up. I think I just do that. All right. Both funerals and weddings can be emotionally taxing. I mean, they can work, but they can be fulfilling. It can be such a good thing to see that, wow, hate that it took a funeral, but you've got a deaf person who's able to make that connection with his family because the interpreter was there. They were able to say and do things that they needed to or haven't or whatever. And there's a lot of benefit and value added to us being there, but it's going to wear on you. It's going to, you don't have anything invested in that. And you go in, you go out. But most of the time, you're going to be touched. And because one of the fruits of the Spirit is compassion, we're going to have compassion for the people in the room. Even if we didn't know Susie. If we didn't know Bertha, we're still going to be sad. Now keep in mind, you don't know what the preacher's going to say. And there was one where the preacher was saying, well, I don't know Miss Bertha. But, I've been the preacher here for the last 13 years, and I've never met her. And she's 87. All this is coming out. But somebody told me she was baptized in the creek down here when she was 13. So we all know she's going to heaven. It's good. And in my belief, maybe that wasn't enough to get her in heaven right now. But you still say it. You still interpret it with that same passion that preacher said it. You still put it out there. Because you don't want to be the one going up there. She's going to heaven. Right. I took that recording. And again, now somebody's going to look at and think that I'm being judgmental or anything. I'm not, but there are things that will be said and done that will trigger something in you. You'll go, oop, Well, I don't necessarily agree. I don't know this person. I don't know this person. Whatever. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at that point. You're interpreting. You're interpreting. That's when you just need to put it out there in the same way. Find out what the cause of death is. That's a question I don't ask, but it's an important question. It really is. It makes a difference, right? You can just envision how that's an important piece of information. Both of these weddings and funerals, they're not ordinary events. They're not daily things. And it takes a lot of skill, a lot of sensitivity, a lot of patience. It's going to be stressful, and you've got to be professional about it. Funerals. I've had several thoughts pop up that I wanted to hold on to. Work out your logistics. Like we were saying, you may be just seated interpreting for one person, but if you're standing up front, I have learned through the years that we have to move flowers. The funeral home has their setup. There's the casket, there's the flowers, there's the lamps, and then that's all in front of the stage, and then there's the stage. First time I interpreted at this, it's flat floor. It wasn't a raised floor, so flat floor. And I'm in front of all of this. I'm not on the stage. And a deaf man back there at one point pops up and says, "We can't see you." And I went, what am I going to do at this point? Yeah. Ding, 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 ding. So now it's to the point where I get there and I go, okay, we need to move this. We need to move this lamp this way. We need to have a hole here. We need to make sure people from every angle can see me. And I'm just kind of setting it up myself. I have a good relationship with this funeral home. I get to go there every now and again, yes. And yes, Miss Smallwood, what can we do here? But your logistics. If so many times I walk away saying, if I'd have thought, a little step stool in my car, and if I'd known I was going to be on the floor, if I'd looked, I would have brought my little step stool, I would have stood on my step stool, and I would have been higher, or I just would have been on the stage. I think for that one there was a reason why. Anyway,
I say one more thing.
Yes.
Both weddings and funerals. Give some consideration to your clothing because you don't want to wear red if it's a pink wedding. I wouldn't wear red to either a funeral or a wedding personally. But black is probably always appropriate, even for a wedding. A lot of weddings are going black now, or navy or something. But you probably don't want to really clash with a wedding, especially.
Especially if you're going to put yourself in all those pictures.
Yes, right. You wouldn't want to wear the same shade as the bridesmaids.
Purple, okay.
Catch the bouquet. Yeah, y'all interpreters don't try to catch the bouquet.
Or the garter, as the case may be.
Oh, yes. That's right, guys. I do have, I came across a book. Chasa shared a book with me, and I really only had the chance to delve into it last Thursday or Friday. It's called Interpreting at Church, A Paradigm for Sign Language Interpreters by Leo Yates, Jr. So I pulled together some scriptures that you're likely to see at weddings and funerals. So this is just kind of a reference, kind of a sheet to help you. I've not gone through and read the scriptures. I've not done that. That book has little sections, what to expect at a Catholic service, what to expect at these types of services. So it did look like it had some good information in it.
What's the name of the book again?
It is Interpreting at Church, A Paradigm for Sign Language Interpreters by Leo Yates, Jr. Yes, I sure can. and that is sign language interpreters. By Leo Yates Jr. Because the scriptures and information can be different. The scriptures can be different. I know, I've interpreted a few Catholic services, and I'm tooling along thinking I'm okay, I'm following the priest with the scripture. And all of a sudden the scripture isn't what I remember anymore. And now we've got some new words in here, and we're tooling, and so I have no frame of reference at that point. And so I'm fighting that internal struggle of, how did I miss this? How have I never read this in my Bible? And it's not in my Bible. It's in the Catholic Bible. So again, preparations. This is one of those, out of town person that called me in for last, and I did. And deaf people hate. I see it on their face every time. They hate this when you walk up and say, I don't know your traditions, I don't know your faith or whatever, but I'm going to do my best. And they just go, oh. But I think it's fair warning to give. It's not trying to make me look good, look better or feel better, nothing for me, but it's just kind of a warning of, the interpreting may not be what you would like for it to be.
One of my worst experiences was before we moved to Memphis. I was called by the local interpreting service and told me to go to this funeral and interpret them for this man. I go to the home. I go in, nobody meets me. I don't know. I see the man's name standing by that particular parlor.
Mm-hmm.
I go in and nobody does me nothing. I stand up there and interpret. Not only that, I make one verse mistakenly interpreting the word in my heart, a song. I laughed. No one said one word. I know there's a deaf person there.
This lady cleaning up off the street.
Start waving her hands, and everybody's wondering, what's she doing up there?
I'm warning still, because any deaf person.
And the deaf people are saying, who was that woman? I mean, the interpreter was fine. Now, who was she? How did she get here? Who's the deaf person there? Yeah, who knows?
Or where's no deaf showed up and all the hearing people are going,
Yes. Oh, that's so beautiful. Yeah. That's such a great job.
Leo Yates book, $30 on Amazon.
$30 on Amazon. Okay. $30. All right. Thank you. Okay. I don't know where we are on time. Are we out of time?
Yeah.
We're out of time. Y'all. This has been fun. Thank you very much for your participation. The next class is voicing practice. I expect to see every one of you. Already did. Yeah, right. Y'all are running. There won't be anybody in here for the next class. That's okay.
I gotta go take my elders class because he went home.
I am so glad you were able to bring him. I'm so glad you brought a group to come.
I didn't bring you my course to.
Awesome. Yes. Wonderful. Yes.
And I'll tell you what, he learned so much.
Good.
And he says, I didn't realize.
They don't.
Yeah.
They don't know it. And I've got 2 or 3 thoughts, but one thing I want to say while y'all are in here is that keep in mind that we have been using simultaneous communication for this week where some speakers have signed and talked at the same time, and that is not the best way. That's not the most effective way. Typically, your signing will suffer. You might be able to speak complete sentences, but your signing will suffer. It's not the best way. We just haven't had the number of interpreters, and in this environment, people are kind of more, I understand fine. But don't go out and think that this is the model, because it's not. It's not the model, okay? Hopefully people have been able to still learn But I wanted to say that to y'all in particular. Okay, and then, I think it's gone. No, it was a thought about just having your eyes open and insights that people learn. They just never think about it. And I had a really, I had a point to go with that, and I don't have it anymore.
Well, I've been trying for 15 years to get them to come to a workshop. And never could get any of them to come. And this year, he tried everything under the